Welcome to the second edition of the Discog Discourse End of the Year Awards episode. We're going to be updating our rankings for bands that we've talked about in past episodes that released new albums this year. We'll also be ranking all the discographies we talked about this year and revealing our favorite EPs, as well as each of our top 5 albums of 2023. My name is Nathan, and with me I have my co-hosts Kyle and Jeff. Boys, it's another year in the books. This one's coming to a close, and we can now look back and verify. We can say with certainty what our favorite releases were.
I can't believe it's already been a year since our last awards episode. It felt like it was yesterday. I'm pretty excited. I'll just say this much: a good year of discogging and a great year of discoursing. That's all I got to say.
I couldn't have said it better myself. That was beautifully put.
I will drink to that. Amen, Jeff.
Kyle, how are you feeling?
I'm feeling great. It's funny that, like, looking back through these rankings and seeing, like, using this as kind of a benchmark for my year, being like, oh, yes, when I was listening to The Devil Wears Prada mercilessly, I was going through this. And this sucked at work and blah, blah, blah. I don't know. Kind of nice.
Time can be measured by our discourse now.
It really is.
True.
And even going back and listening through some of these songs, like, I'm like transported to where I was listening to this music.
Yeah. And I mean, looking at our spread, because we're, putting all these bands against each other and ranking them in this episode, kind of a weird assortment of bands.
Very all over the place.
I found it kind of difficult to rank because, you got Blink-182 and Avenged Sevenfold. Like, in Linkin Park, like those legendary classic bands that shape music. And then you also have Motionless in White, who's really popular right now. And so it's like, how do you compare those two? Stay tuned and you'll find out, I guess.
Yeah. And having to loop back and talk about bands that I thought I had buried in my backyard for good, like Emarosa, because they released a freaking record in January.
Yeah, they did.
So that's also electric.
We'll be talking about that.
We will be. But boys, how can we talk about this year without giving a shout out to Matt from Pulses and Carson from the Callous Dow Boys? That is the highlight of my year for when it comes to Discog Discourse, talking to those guys, getting to pick their brain, and honestly getting to roast them a little bit for how they hear music. Can't wait for more of those next year.
All part of the discourse. Yeah, we got a couple lined up for next year already, so stay tuned for that. Follow, subscribe, whatever, so you don't miss those. It's not just 3 guys giving their terrible opinions anymore.
It's now 4.
It's 3 guys roping in one person who's in a band, and we can all share our terrible opinions.
Finally roping in a qualified opinion.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, well, before we really get into this, you know what I gotta do. I've been doing it all year. Gotta plug the socials. If you want to join the discourse, you can follow us on Twitter at Discog_pod, on TikTok at Discog Discourse, on Instagram at Discog.discourse, and of course, wherever you're listening, give us a 5-star review if you're listening on streaming. If you're listening or watching on YouTube, subscribe, give us a like, leave a comment, give us your takes. What makes this fun is seeing y'all's opinions, whether it's hating on us or loving on us. As always, we have a couple tweets that we're going to shout out. If you want a shout out at the start of the next episode, which may or may not have a special guest, all you got to do is quote tweet whatever promotional material we do for this. I imagine it will be our rankings. Quote it with your takes, and I'll read a couple at the start of the next episode. This first one is from x.com/100damagedave at DMNDXDave. This is from our Blink-182 episode that we just did with Matt from Pulses. He says, great episode, even though I only yelled, get the F out of here like 3 times. Anyway, number 1, Untitled. Number 2, Take Off Your Pants and Jacket. Number 3, Enema of the State. 4, Neighborhoods. 5, One More Time. 6, Dude Ranch. 7, Cheshire Cat. 8, California. 9. If the vocals weren't so GD glossy on One More Time, it'd be an easy number 3. But alas, Kyle, what do you think about that? Do you think if One More Time wasn't so glossy in general, it could be better? Is the songwriting there?
Maybe. I would say maybe above Neighborhood, but there's no way it's above 1 through 4. So he is almost right, but an easy number 3. That's a crazy thing to say when Enema of the State is sitting right there as one of the great albums ever, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But listen, I've talked to people in my non-Discog Discourse life who have said they love One More Time. And like they've been listening to it on repeat. And obviously Matt
loved it.
Last episode said the same thing. So like, I mean, I'm obviously not hearing something, but it was funny to hear that after we recorded, talking to people and then being like, yeah, One More Time is my go-to right now because it feels like old Blink. I thought that was cool.
This next shout out goes to Noam Chomsky at Mikey Switz. His list goes number 1, Untitled, 2, Take Off Your Pants and Jacket, 3, Enema, which I just realized is the same top 3 from x.com/100 Damage Dave, which is really interesting considering I don't think any of us would agree with that. Anyways, 4, Dude Ranch, 5, Cheshire Cat, 6, Buddha, 7, Dogs Eating Dogs, a project we did not talk about, 8, Neighborhoods, 9, One More Time, 10, California, 11, 9. So obviously for the sake of our episode, we trimmed it down a little bit. We didn't do Buddha or Dogs Eating Dogs. But yeah, I just wanted to give this list some credit because it is a really interesting one. We went from Neighborhoods being in number 4 to like number 8. And obviously this guy wouldn't say One More Time is an easy top 3. He's kind of more of my way of thinking of the new albums are bottom tier, except for California. I disagree there. And, you know, we'll just move on to the last one right here. I believe this one is from Alyssa at Hope Division, but the O is a 0. She says all of these are a yikes.
That's a coward stance.
No, I think she speaks for the people, quite honestly.
I think it's the truest stance of them all.
Put your rankings out there like a
Discogger?
I was going to say like
a Discogger?
like a discourser. Ever since Jeff started the Discog Agree course, Discogger, Discourser, my brain has shut off.
Yeah, Kyle's one Discog Discourser joke away from actually quitting.
Yeah, going off the grid for 3 years.
And then we'll welcome you back and we'll do one more time. Okay, enough of that. We're going to get into our agenda for tonight. And first up, we're going to update our rankings. So these are some bands that we've talked about in past episodes that released new music this year. And we just, we want to keep our rankings up to date. And to streamline this episode, if any of these albums are in our top 5 list that we'll be going through later, we're going to table that discussion and revisit it when it's revealed in those rankings. So, for example, I'll just go ahead and get this out of the way right now. We did a Hail the Sun episode. I think it was like our 3rd episode. They put out an album earlier this year. And I'm just going to say it. It's in my top 5. So we're going to table that discussion and come back to it later. With all of that kind of explanation out of the way, we're going to get into some new music. Beartooth's newest record, The Surface, unless anyone says otherwise.
Nope, let's do it.
No offense, Caleb, but I didn't think so. Man, I've been hugging the mic. Why don't y'all kick this off? Where does this rank for y'all? And then let's get into it.
Oh man, okay, I'll start. I think it's gonna go at the bottom for me. I'm not gonna lie to you. I think it goes straight to the bottom. And I'll just say this much: 1, there are way too many acoustic songs on here, and I just don't think it works. And the other thing is that I feel like most of these songs, the momentum is killed in them so many times. I don't know if you guys noticed that through your listens through it, but I feel like every song like picks up and there's like a heavy part and then it just stops and there's like an instrumental and it goes back into the chorus and I'm like, okay, I'm not having fun anymore. Even Aggressive didn't do it that much and didn't have that many acoustic songs on it. Mm-hmm. So with those two things, I mean, I can't put it above anything else.
Yeah. So Kyle, you have this in 5th place, and I have some explaining to do on my list because I did some switching around. Every year we have one chance to revise a list from an episode that we did this year. And this was this our first episode of 2023?
Yeah,
I think it was.
Yeah, it was.
And I think I had disease at the bottom and then aggressive. So that was my 5 and 4. I'm going to revise that. I'm going to move aggressive down to the bottom.
Okay.
Aggressive is my new number 6.
Okay.
Disease bumps up to number 4. And then the surface fits right in between them at number 5.
Sure. Yeah, I can respect that.
What's the reasoning for the surface being at number 5, though?
Okay. I've soured on aggressive. That's part of it getting bumped down because it's just so surface level and repetitive. And it's just, I think it's their worst record. The surface being at number 5, I think it's just because this album isn't really for me. Caleb's clearly in a better headspace. And, that's always good. Happy for him. But musically, this is just it answers the question, what if Beartooth but happy? It's like a happy Beartooth record, and I think a lot of it is just kind of uninteresting. Some of the good elements of modern Beartooth are here. Production sounds good, especially in the guitar. He does have a unique guitar tone, and it sounds sick when a riff comes in. I love his tone. And there are some fun riffs on here too. I think the title track, The Surface, has some pretty cool riffs. Riptide and What's Killing You both have sick breakdowns. My New Reality also has a pretty cool breakdown riff. And I'll also give Caleb credit. Vocally, he sounds great on here, and his singing and screaming. Choruses are as big as ever. They're catchy, but that's not really enough for me because Beartooth has always kind of been that. And I think a lot of the mediocre elements of modern Beartooth are present here. The lyricism, nothing to write home about, never really is. I don't think it ever gets as bad as the pitiful depths of aggressive. But there are some kind of eye roll inducing lyrics on here. Doubt Me especially comes to mind.
That one's tough.
Just every time he says, "Don't ever doubt me" or whatever, I'm just like,
so bad.
Yeah, that's not good. So yeah, this album just isn't for me. The best elements on here you can find done better elsewhere in their discography, and there's just not enough to redeem what I think is a lot of the mediocre elements on here.
Yeah, I mean, I really essentially echo you. You do feel uplifted after leaving this record, which is wonderful, but too much falls flat. I think Riptide is a solid song. I think Might Love Myself, that's a guilty pleasure song for me. I recognize this group wouldn't love it, but I don't dislike it. And I think the biggest guilty pleasure song for me off this record, and one of the bigger ones of the year, is Sunshine.
I agree.
Yeah, I agree with that, actually.
I love the cadence shift in that song. And I love how Caleb really takes control of explaining where he's at and just you can really feel that through the tension of the music. That's great. There are moments, but Nathan, like you said, overall, you can find this Beartooth better. I scoffed when this record came out, but I'm not scoffing at it right now. And that I think there are some really solid songs. There are some really solid song structures. But as an album, as Nathan mentioned, it falls flat in too many areas to put it above anything that I legitimately really enjoy, like Sick, Disease, Below, and Disgusting.
Sure.
Yeah. And to be completely honest, I don't know that there's a lot that I really dislike on here. It's just kind of...
Right. No, me too.
A lot of it's fine. It's pretty standard from what I would expect from a Beartooth album. I just think that Beartooth formula at this point is getting a little tiring to me. But I do agree. Sunshine is awesome. I love the contrast in that song. The chorus is that great song.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
All of my stuttering there is to say it's a great song.
Yeah, I think that's where I'm at, is that I feel like it's just getting so stale. I feel like every album from here on out from them, unless they change up dramatically, I don't know why I would ever listen to it instead of going back to to Disgusting or Below or something where I know it's just going to hit. Yeah, I agree that the formula is just kind of getting stale. Even though this album is incredibly glossy, I do agree the production is good. I just... Every song, sort of going back to that eye rolling that you're talking about, I'm just like, come on, really?
And I will say, it is kind of interesting that it still feels kind of stale because we've been talking about it. There's a noticeable tonal shift on this album for Beartooth. It sounds a lot happier. I could already picture in my head a lot of people on Twitter being like, it is different. You know, you want it to be different. It is different, and you still don't like it. I don't think it's that significant of a difference because a lot of the same musical, lyrical, you know, all of those elements from the classic Beartooth formula is still there. Just now, sometimes it's in a major key.
Yeah,
exactly.
It's not really enough.
I want to put it higher, but I can't put it above Sick, and I can't really put it above Disease. Like, it's, again, like we've talked about, it is impressive that Caleb is at this point, at least Nathan and I have talked about, and that he's put together some cool songs. But I mean, man, if I'm listening to Beartooth, I probably have that itch to really feel something and really feel the heavy.
Yep.
And that's something I can really only find in Sick, Disgusting, maybe a little bit in Below.
Mhm.
Yeah,
but
agreed.
That's where I'm at.
I think what perfectly sums up this album is the back-to-back tracks, The Better Me and Might Love Myself. You can condense this entire album into those two songs. If you like them, great. Check out the rest of the album. You'll probably like it. If you don't, I'll save you 45 minutes and tell you there's nothing on there for you that you'll probably like that much outside of maybe Sunshine. But you go listen to that one too if you want to try one more track. But yeah, this album just doesn't really do it for me, which is why, unfortunately, it ranks lower than higher. Bottom half of the Discog for me.
Yep. Couldn't have said it better myself.
Agreed.
All right. Well, moving on into the next album, we've got Emarosa's Sting.
How are you going to find a song snip for that, Nathan?
Man, I don't know. I could choose any one of them. They all sound the same.
Yeah. I have a feeling we won't be talking about this one super long.
No,
Look, Emarosa is so far gone from their original sound that I don't even feel like it's the same band at this point. So it's like,
well, and in reality, it's kind of not, because like, are there any original members left? I genuinely don't know.
No, and the reason that Jeff, at least I remember that Jeff picked Emarosa was because of Johnny Craig. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, 100%.
And Johnny Craig released two really solid records, one of which is a record I come back to pretty often in Emarosa, the self-titled.
Were you about to say relatively often?
Nah, I was about to say relatively. I knew you'd catch it. But yeah, I mean, there's no reason. We were talking before, like, I listened to this once in January, and I listened to half of the first track today, and that's it. Nothing is interesting on this record. No, it's a pop album, and they've gotten pretentious and they've gotten annoying, in my opinion.
Yeah.
For the audio-only listeners, this is all at the bottom.
Oh, it's not even a question.
Clean sweep.
Not even a question.
Of Sting is in last place, ranking at number 7 for Emarosa. Now, Jeff, sorry, I cut you off. You were about to dig your claws.
No, I was just gonna. We were fearing this was gonna happen after Peach Club, where it was like we know that they're just gonna fully embrace the pop, the mainstream, and they did. And it was like our worst fears come true. And it's like, okay, I give up. This band, I'll go back and listen to Emarosa and Relativity. That's kind of it. I mean, I've given up all hope.
Yeah. I remember talking about that in the episode way back in was that our second episode?
It was.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I think it was.
Yeah.
So that was a long time ago. Really kind of a crazy choice for our second episode. Not gonna lie.
Yeah. Whose choice was that again, right? Whose choice was it?
It was mine.
I think it was
Oh, it was Jeff's. That's crazy.
Yeah,
wow,
right.
that's nuts. We would never talk about this band. We would never talk about this band if you had picked another band.
I don't know what compelled me to pick them. I'm going to be real. I don't remember.
I don't know either.
It was a bit interesting choice. Anyways, in that episode, we were talking about, we don't like where Emarosa is trending. But at least Peach Club had given up on the album, which is it's catchy and it has some level of energy to it.
Yep.
And a sax solo. I'm all for that. None of that is on this album.
Yeah.
My first note that I wrote down was, holy smokes, this makes that Beartooth album look like an album of the year contender.
Oh, yeah.
Literally. They make Beartooth look like the Beatles.
That's so true, actually.
This is bad. This is not good, but it's so far removed from what I'm like used to talking about and like what I know musically. And I'll admit it, I don't know pop music that well. Like that's just not in my wheelhouse. But like this to me just sounds like an attempt to kind of capture that 80s synth pop nostalgia that's kind of been going around with like The Weeknd and Harry Styles, who both kind of dabble with elements from that era. But the thing about those artists is they mix it into their own sound in some kind of way or do something interesting with it. Where this is literally just a modern band with modern production, just doing that sound without updating it or doing anything interesting with it.
Yep.
It's purposeless. There is no reason that this needs to exist. And there's probably someone out there that feels differently and that really likes this album, but it's not me. I don't have much to say about this album. I really don't. I listened to it in January, dreaded the fact that we'd have to review it all year long, got about 3 albums in, came up with one take, and then I was like, yep, that's good enough for me. Because this just isn't the kind of music we talk about. In all honesty,
that's more than I did. I'm going to be real with you. It's way more than I did. I tried to listen to it and I was like, I knew this was going to happen. I remember listening to one of the singles back then. I was like, I know where this is going. Yeah. And, I listened to a couple songs. And I was like, that's it. I can't. Yeah. It's really sad.
And you know what? If that makes us worse music critics, fine by me. This is that's okay.
If Emarosa is going to be the straw that broke the camel's back for you when listening to us, then that's fine.
I'll listen to their terrible takes for 2 hours all day long.
But Emarosa.
But as soon as they didn't actually listen to that Emarosa album, that's where I had to call it.
When my favorite song of the year was Preach by Emarosa. Grow up.
Grow up. Get out of the 80s. There's been more music since then. Believe me. Some of it's good. All right, well,
that was that.
I don't think
nothing
we
else.
need to.
Nothing else. Let's keep it moving, boys.
Now we're going to move into the next section of the show, and we're going to rank all the discographies that we talked about this year. Because it's not enough to just rank all the albums in a discography. Now we got to pit those bands against each other. And honestly, we're not going to spend a bunch of time explaining or debating these choices, because if you want to hear our extended thoughts on a band, there's a full back catalog of episodes from this year that you can go back and listen to hear everything we have to say about a band. So I've kind of been jawing a lot. And one of y'all want to kind of lead this discussion?
Jeff, I want you to drive. I feel more confident if you drive.
All right, I'll do it then.
Let's see. We've got 10 discographies to rank.
Yep.
What was your least favorite band that we talked about this year?
All right. So at number 10, my least favorite band we talked about this year, and hopefully not surprising to either of you, is unfortunately Beartooth.
Same.
Okay. Someone cooked here. Someone cooked here, boys. Right. Let's go.
The way that I kind of looked at these discographies was like, how many albums out of them do I truly like? And then when it came down to it, it was like, if I was going to a desert island, which discography would I take with me? And Beartooth has one amazing album, one solid EP, and then the rest of it's just okay, in my opinion. So that kind of ranks it at the bottom, because all these other bands have more than that, at least in my opinion.
I agree. I think the only other note I had in addition to that was even having one of my favorite metalcore records in Disgusting can't redeem what is ultimately a pretty weak discography.
Exactly. Yeah. Couldn't have said it better myself.
Yep. All right. Well, there's
number 9.
10, right at the bottom there. Move us along.
Sure. At number 9, and here, hopefully this isn't too controversial, Memphis Mayfire. Number 4.
Ooh.
All right.
Number 4.
All right.
What the
heck? Okay.
All right.
Okay.
Nathan's got it at number 4. I have it. Kyle, of course, has it at number 7. And Jeff has it at number 9.
All right. So, okay. Listen. Memphis Mayfire has some bad albums.
That is an understatement.
Okay. They have one truly terrible album and then a couple that are like bad but largely inoffensive. But also, they start their discography with 3, and I would even say 4 incredible albums. Sleepwalking, The Hollow, Challenger, and Unconditional all have very high highs, especially The Hollow, which is like pretty much a perfect album. I will concede Memphis Mayfire had a dark period when they released Broken. and even This Light I Hold, and even Remade in Misery, I think is what it's called.
Yep.
They've been rough recently, but only one of those albums is truly bad, like I said. Jeff, why so down on Memphis, bro?
Look, The Hollow is like the one album out of this entire discography that I know is going to stick with me. I like Sleepwalking, I like Challenger, but I don't completely love them. Only one truly great album that I want to take with me onto that desert island, so to speak. And then the other thing is that their discography is kind of long. And so, in my opinion, Unconditional like has a few good songs, but it's a miss. This Light I Hold is a miss. Broken is a miss. Remade in Misery, it's a miss. So you start like building up all these misses, and it just really drags down the discography.
Yeah, I have a similar take of The Hollow's perfect. Sleepwalking is an excellent record. The Challenger has some hits. The Unconditional has some hits, but the misses on those kind of make way for the misses that is This Light I Hold, Broken, Make Believe, and a lot of Remade in Misery. And just overall, really underwhelming discography towards the end based off of what we had to begin with. I think they have two standout records, and that's it. So
I think I'm just a little higher on the albums I like. And I mean, the one album is terrible, but the other two I don't think are quite as bad.
Sure.
They're not
Fair
good by
enough.
any means, but
No, I respect that opinion.
So that's why it comes in at number 4 for me.
All right.
Let's
keep
us
going.
cruising. What's your
keep
number?
us rolling.
My
Jeff.
number 8,
Yeah.
Motionless in White.
Welcome,
Boys.
We're back. We're
Boys, this is what we do.
We're back in business, baby. Our Halloween episode.
Jeff and I have it at number 8. Nathan has it at number 9.
Yeah,
Let's
and I
go,
figured
baby.
this would be the
I'm
case.
honestly shocked I have this lower than y'all.
It was a toss-up between this and Memphis. I'm going to be real. I think the reason that this took the cake just a little bit more is because I think Infamous and Reincarnate are good, and then they also have Disguise and Scoring, which are pretty good as well.
Hold on, Jeff. You put Scoring at the bottom of your list.
Well, I want to amend my
too.
list. I said that.
Oh, is that your amendment?
Yeah, I wanna
amendment?
amend
What are you amending?
I want to put Scoring like I want to put it above. I want to put it at like my number 5, to be honest.
All right.
Wow, that's quite the
Graveyard shit
jump.
at the bottom.
Yeah, for sure. I was talking about this a little bit on the episode, but like that album, I was way too harsh on it. And going back to it, I realized that I made a mistake. So I wanna amend that.
Yeah.
I should have said that at the outset. I actually do like Scoring. It's not my favorite, but it's okay. So it's pretty good. Yeah. So Motionless, a more consistent discography in my opinion than Memphis, and has just a couple more albums that I like.
Okay, well here's why I put it below them. Well below them on my list. Infamous is probably my least favorite album that we talked about this year. I can't stand it. Creatures is amazing. I also think Scoring the End of the World is amazing. So this discography is bookended by 2 great albums, but everything in between is, it's good. Some of it's good, some of it's okay. But some of it is also very bad. And that very bad, of course, being Infamous. I don't think I'm as warm on this discography as y'all are.
I'm really not either. I think they have 2 standout records in Disguise and Creatures. Scoring the End of the World is fine, but after that, man, it's a tough listen, especially Infamous, Graveyard Shift, and one of my least favorite albums we've ever talked about, Reincarnate.
Sure.
So
I love that we have different least favorite albums in the discography.
It's beautiful.
That was one of the best episodes, I think. That episode was so fun.
That was a lot of
blast.
Fun. All right, I'll keep going.
All right, keep on moving.
All right. At number 7, I have Pierce the Veil.
Okay.
Kyle, I feel you.
I have that at my number 5, just under Memphis Mayfire.
Yep, I have it at number 6, and Jeff has it at number 7.
I love Pierce the Veil. I'm a huge Pierce the Veil fan. I really do. But when I went back through their discography, I realized that there are only 3 albums that I really go back to. And although I think that those albums are great, Selfish Machines, Collide with the Sky, Misadventures, it's only 3 albums, in a pretty tight discography. And so I just don't think it has the holding power that some of these other players do. So that's why I have it so low. It has less to do with Pierce the Veil being bad and more to do with just these other discographies are so strong.
Interesting.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that slightly different. The record I go back to the most is A Flair for the Dramatic. But at the end of the day, it is not big enough of a discography and a strong enough of a discography for me to put them any higher. Like you mentioned, it's just like there are really strong records, but only having 5 or 6, it's tough.
That's one way to look at it. I think the way I look at it is like, if a band has 5 albums, but 3, 4 of them are really good, that ratio is pretty strong. So the overall strength of the discography, while it may be shorter, it's a stronger discography, at least in my mind. And at the end of the day, I think this is pretty like inoffensive. I have this below Memphis Mayfire, but I don't think I don't think there's an album as bad as Broken by Memphis Mayfire in this discog. I also don't think there's an album as good as The Hollow. So I think I bumped it down for not quite having the highs that all of the discographies above it have. But, I didn't really like The Jaws of Life, but at the end of the day, kind of an inoffensive album. Mm-hmm. So that's why I feel like middle of the road is kind of exactly where this belonged for me.
Agreed. That's where I'm at with it too. All right, let's get a little bit controversial.
Oh boy.
Number 6, I have Linkin Park.
Oh, you think that's controversial?
Yeah, it's not too bad.
Okay,
that's not too bad.
Never mind. You guys are around the same area.
I mean, I have it at number 4. Nathan has it at number 7. Jeff is at number 6. And the reason I have it at number 4 is simply because my 3 favorite Linkin Park albums, Hybrid Theory, Meteora, and Minutes to Midnight, and specifically Hybrid Theory and Meteora, are 3 of the greatest albums that have ever come out in the genre, especially Hybrid Theory and Meteora. And I know that's not looking necessarily at the discography as a whole, but that 3 album run is nuts. Not to mention that I do enjoy Hunting Party, and I think Living Things is fine. But all that to say is the weight that my top 3 favorite Linkin Park albums holds really carries this discography for me, and I love it. Even though One More Light and 1,000 Suns I thoroughly did not enjoy, it is what it is. This discography is great, and it's a powerful band.
Look, Meteora, Hybrid Theory, all-timers.
Yep.
Literally legendary albums. Minutes to Midnight is good. I think there is an obvious step down from Meteora, Hybrid Theory. And everything after that is okay to not good at all. And so I think when you're looking at a discography with, golly, how many albums? You got 7 albums. 7 albums. 2 of them are incredible, super high highs, and then the rest are solid to bad. That's not a very good success rate. I can't say it's a below average discography. Or actually, I can say that. It's a below average discography.
No, you cannot.
Discography. If you look at the entire discography, below
obviously
average.
2 all-time albums.
If you're looking at those,
but the discography.
If you're looking at even those first 3, unreal.
Okay, maybe
2.5. Give me 2.5.
I'll give you 2.5 for 1,000 Suns instead of Minutes to Midnight. Yeah.
You know what? I'll take what I can get.
Well, that's where I'm at. Meteora, Hybrid Theory, absolute classics, obviously. Then for me, 1,000 Suns is good, but not great. Then the rest of the discography I could do without. And so it's like 2.5 albums. Those 2 at the beginning really pull it up, but I can't put it any higher compared to what's coming next.
Yep, same. So what does come above it?
Well, I'll tell you right now, at number, what are we at? 5, I'm going to put Currents.
That's okay.
That takes my number 9 spot.
Whoa.
Next, my number 3. Okay. We're creeping closer to the top of my list.
Okay, Kyle, why is it so low?
I want to start by saying this is a discography I know I should really enjoy, and I just didn't. It never clicked listening to it for the month that I listened to it. The only record that really stuck with me was The Place I Feel Safest. I enjoy the way it ends. I enjoy The Death We Seek, but I'm never revisiting them. And overall, there's one stellar record on this discography for me, even though I recognize that there probably should be more for the music that I enjoy. But The Place I Feel Safest is really the only thing I've ever come back to listen to for Currents, and that's why it's at the number 9 spot.
All right, let me jump in with the other side. I think this is kind of a sleeper discog. One of the best metalcore albums of the 2010s in The Place I Feel Safest. And while, I don't necessarily love the way it ends, I made that very clear in the episode. I do enjoy The Death We Seek. I don't think this discography ever dips into bad territory.
Yep.
At worst, it's safe, standard metalcore, which at the end of the day is still pretty enjoyable. There's only really that one album that I'm not a huge fan of. Everything else I enjoy quite a bit. And so that's why this ranks so high for me. Yeah, I like Currents. They're, a pretty popular modern metalcore band. And I think there's a good reason for that. They do what they do well.
Yeah, the reason why I have it at number 5 is because there's only one project that they've ever released that I didn't absolutely love, which is The Way It Ends. The rest of their stuff, I really like. I really do, including Victimized, their earliest EP.
Mm-hmm.
So when I look at it, the only reason why I have it so low is because it's not a very long discography. And maybe it's true they only have one truly great album. But even at their lowest, the way it ends is like, it's okay. Sort of what you were saying, Nathan. They never dip into bad territory, in my opinion, which all these other bands below them definitely do.
I respect it. I think I'm seeing the pattern here of you handicapping the shorter discographies, whereas my perspective is kind of the ratio of, okay, how many good projects to total projects, you know? Looking for that percentage.
Yeah, I never really thought of the ratio before. I'm more of a total project person, which is like, how many total albums of their discography do I really like?
That's fair. All right.
Well, all right, let's keep going. At number 4, I have Blink 182.
Yeah, so that's going to take my number 8 spot.
Oh my gosh. Oh my
God. My number 3 spot.
Look. I know people are going to be mad about this. I know.
What is wrong with you?
Look, I know. Blink in the early 2000s, undefeated. Paved the way for modern pop punk and emo and all that. We talked about it in the episode we just did. Cool. But with every new release, they're just digging themselves a deeper and deeper grave, just getting lower and lower on this list in terms of overall strength of discography. You know, I'll be generous. I'll even throw in California. Their last 2 to 3 albums have been like kind of miserable to listen to, especially when the deluxe album is 2 albums in California.
What are you talking about? What are you put California for? You died on that cross, and now you're burying it.
But check this out.
Look at you.
This is why this discography ranks low to me, because even my number 4 album, I don't revisit.
Well, no.
Whoa.
Dude Ranch, Enema, Take Off Your Pants and Jacket, Blink 182, Neighborhoods. That's like 5 good albums right there, not including Cheshire Cat or One More Time.
But remember, Nathan put Self-Titled at 6, which is still one of the craziest things I've ever seen. Because it's one of the greatest albums I've ever listened to.
And it just doesn't work for me. Like, Enema of the State, incredible. Take Off Your Pants and Jacket, incredible. To me, those are their best albums. And then you start taking steps down. Dude Ranch, solid punk record. It's not going to change my world. Untitled, solid emo record. You know, obviously very important at the time. The context, blah, 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 blah. We talked about it. Not really an album I like that much. And so I think for me, I mean, I look at the overall strength of this discography. It's just an unbelievable amount of albums. 9, 2 of them are great, and everything else is fine to darn near unbearable in 9. Like, I don't know. I almost put Motionless in White above them to bump this band down to my number 9 as well.
Wow.
Just know that there was a discussion I had to have with myself there.
Wow.
That's
crazy.
But this decision ultimately hinged on Motionless doesn't have the legendary albums that Blink does. Because they do. Blink has legendary albums, but the ratio is bad.
I mean, the ratio, dude. This ratio.
What do you mean? It makes sense.
It does, but in
kind of
perspective, dude.
Kind of.
They have like 5 or 6 just great albums, and you can't take that.
5 or 6 great albums,
but great. you can't, Nathan. You can't put a masterpiece, a perfect album, and pit it against an album that you just didn't really enjoy. Like, the impact of the discography there is kind of watered down at that point.
If this discussion was most important bands, rank them, Blink would probably be towards the top, but so would Linkin Park.
Yeah, I agree. This isn't an impact list. This is a how much do you enjoy listening to them list.
This is my opinion.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, you're right. But the ratio thing, I don't know. I have a problem with putting Enema of the State and comparing it just apples to oranges with 9.
I will say, like, the high highs of an album do come into play. Like I said, you know, Memphis Mayfire ranked above Pierce the Veil because The Hollow has higher highs. So it's not just a pure good album, bad album, good album, bad. Let me count it up. Like, there is consideration into, okay, this album is phenomenal. But I just think those phenomenal records that they do have, especially Enema, that phenomenal record, can't carry the weight of a lot of the rest of this discography. And like, some of it's fine. Neighborhoods is fine. It can't pull it up. Can't pull it up. I'm sorry.
That's fair.
Got to be down here.
Would you say the weight is pretty heavy?
Oh, heavy as a reference.
That was a great reference. That song had completely escaped my mental.
The Lord answered your prayers and erasing that song from your memory.
and then you put it right on back.
Yes. I'm doing some type of work here.
You are.
All right.
Okay. Well, I feel like that was a good.
That feels good. I like it.
I feel that was fun. We're getting a little spicy. I like it.
This is fun.
A little discourse.
All right.
We're discoursing.
Let's enter my top 3 now. At number 3, I have Bullet for My Valentine.
Okay. Yeah.
Nathan's number 6, my number 5.
Simply put, I think they have a lot of good albums, and even their most recent one, I do like. They're one of the, a very consistent band. One of the definitions of consistency, at least in terms of releasing good music this late into their career. Aside from a few hiccups, and this is one thing with these top 3 bands for me, is that even when they're bad, it's not like terrible. It's not like Memphis Mayfire terrible or Blink-182 terrible, in my opinion, at least. And so even when they're bad, it's not that bad. And when they're great, it's just absolutely amazing. For me, at least, Bullet for My Valentine has at least 5 good albums, if not 6, depending on the day with Temper.
Ugh, no, that is not a good album.
I know you're a Temper hater.
I disagree. I disagree.
Hater. I'm not a Temper hater. I'm kind of more of a Temper believer.
Temper truther.
Temper truther.
I'm a Temper truther.
Yeah, no, it could not be me.
I'm sort of a Fever hater, but I do recognize there's some great songs on Fever.
I like Fever.
I'm a Fever truther. Now we want to talk about some truthin'. Bro, let me tell you about the Fever.
Yeah, you have Fever High.
I did. I love that album. Guy. I think it's so good. I largely agree with you. I think this discography kind of evens out as inoffensive. Great albums, and a lot of them are very good and very influential for me and like my music journey personally. Cremain Fire, The Poison, Fever. I guess hearing it for the first time this year when we did this episode. They're self-titled, their most recent album. That's solid stuff.
Really good. Really good.
Yeah, it's a good metalcore album, which was shocking. But then there's also albums like Temper and Gravity. They're fine. They're not bad. They're kind of so-so. What makes me think this discography kind of evens out as inoffensive is that I just don't really gravitate towards this style of music anymore. Like this style of metalcore just isn't something that I go back to very often. Like if we'd have done this 8 years ago, then this would probably be number 1, maybe number 2. But this isn't 8 years ago. And so while there is a lot of like really good stuff that was really formative for me, I think now the way I kind of look at it is, Bullet's fine.
Yeah, I largely agree. The Poison, Screaming Fire, and Self-Titled are what carried it to a number 5 spot. And then behind it, largely inoffensive records that, I wasn't a huge fan of Fever. I wasn't a huge fan of Gravity, but overall there are gems on all of them.
Yeah.
It's a great discography. Yep. It's a powerhouse right off the bat. The first 2 records with The Poison into Screaming Fire. You can't get much better than that.
Yep.
I mean, honestly, I loved going back and listening for Bullet. And honestly, I forgot that we had done that. And
it was super nostalgic. It was a lot of fun to do that episode.
Yeah,
certainly. Yeah.
All of our 1 and 2s are open, so this is going to be interesting.
Can we meet back up here at the top?
I think you're going to disagree with me.
We've done some Discourse.
I think you're going to disagree with me. But I have to do it.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, do it. Do your worst.
All right. At number 2, my second favorite discography this year is The Devil Wears Prada.
Jeff,
let's go.
You thought we were going to be different.
You
thought we were going to be different, Jeff.
Let's go.
And we're back. We're so back.
And we're so back.
Boys, it was never a doubt. There was never a doubt.
My top 3 were never in doubt, ever. Devil Wears Prada. I mean, when you talk about strong discographies from beginning to end, it doesn't get much better than this, except for one band that we will talk about here in a second. But in terms of like every other band in existence, like it doesn't
get much better than this. So I put it at number 2.
But
well, Jeff, what about the Space EP? Does it get better than that?
No, it does. But
the Space EP is like Transit Blues is the only album I really don't like from them. Even the Space EP is like, I know I hated on it, but it's like, it's okay.
It's great.
Yeah, everything else after that is just, it's good. Even Dear Love is still like a great first album. And it just gets better from there.
Yeah.
And then they have what my favorite EP of all time in Zombie 1.
Incredible. Yeah, man. I mean, it doesn't get much more consistent than this. For a band to be going this long and to then put out arguably one of their best albums as their most recent release, like they are still going very strong to this day. Just one of the iconic metalcore bands in the scene. Like incredible albums and some of the best EPs I've ever heard. quite frankly. The zombie ones especially are phenomenal. And I'm also a big space guy. I love the space EP. I think it's super cool. It's super different. And I think that's another thing that kind of factors into this. Like, The Devil Wears Prada has done a lot of different things. Not all of them necessarily work for me, but the fact that they've been able to wear so many hats and still, for the most part, be really consistent like that, it's super impressive. I had always been kind of a fan, kind of a casual fan of The Devil Wears Prada, songs here and there. Oh, I like this EP. I kind of fell in love with this band this year when we did that episode.
Same.
Yeah, me too, man. Like, Dead Throne opened my eyes to kind of that time of metalcore, that genre of metalcore, and it really made me appreciate them. And like you mentioned, Nathan, you can't beat the zombie EPs. You really just can't. I wasn't even a casual fan. I wasn't a fan at all, and I chose this band, and I fell in love with them, like you mentioned, Nathan. So I love this Discog.
Yeah, I also had the chance to see them live at the Metalcore Dropouts tour, and they absolutely stole the show. They put on a phenomenal set, kind of digging deep into their Discog, playing some Zombie One songs, playing some Roots. I was blown away by their performance. They're awesome. I love Prada. Yeah. Take us home, Jeff.
I mean, who else? Come on. Can't be anyone else. I mean, Avenged Sevenfold.
Natural.
It can't.
Even when Avenged Sevenfold is bad, quote unquote, they're still pretty good. And I think that's a good sign for their discography. And then they also have, in my opinion, one of the strongest 3 album stretches ever. City of Evil, Avenged Sevenfold, Nightmare. It doesn't get much better than that right there.
And really and truly this time, it does not get much better than
truly,
that.
I mean that. Like, it's probably the strongest discography we have ever talked about.
Okay,
even from last year.
I'm out.
No, you disagree?
I agree with that.
Avenged Sevenfold.
If you want to talk about sheer consistency, Ice Nine Kills is super consistent.
You would take their discography over Avenged Sevenfold?
It's so nowhere near City of Evil to
no. Look,
Nightmare.
I'm not trying to say their highs are the same. Obviously, they're not. I don't think Ice has a miss. Avenged Sevenfold, starting to miss a little bit.
You're talking about Life Is But a Dream? Because I love that album.
You better believe I am.
No, I like that album too. You're full of it. Oh, Nathan, and you who stood on your high tower and mocked me for putting their first record at number 5 for Ice Nine Kills. You really gonna stand on that statement that Ice Nine Kills has never missed?
Yeah, I am gonna stand on that statement. I seem to recall saying this is one of the hardest episodes we've done because this album or this discography is so consistent.
Yeah, but you guys mocked me.
Play back the tape. Play back the tape. Everyone go back and listen to that.
Spencer defended me.
He did. So everyone go back and listen, play back the tape, go back to the Ice Nine Kills episode and tell us what happened, because we don't remember. I guess you'll have to tell us.
I'm in my feelings right now. My bad, John.
No. It's okay. I love it. Yeah, this discography is incredible. Even outside of their 3-run stretch that is just legendary, go an album before that. You've got Waking the Fallen, which is really, really good. And then on the other end, you got Hail to the King, which has some really great songs. Yeah. So it's like arguably 5 good to great albums in a row of varying qualities, obviously.
Yeah. I was going to say, you could argue that, if you include Waking the Fallen, you could say 4 album stretch. And I would be like, okay.
I'll give them credit. Life Is But a Dream, not for me, but at least it's not generic. They're trying some weird stuff. And I will say there are some good songs on there, like the weird funk one. I still really enjoyed that song. And the piano outro, which is still just beautiful. So it has interesting moments. There's a lot I don't like on there, but I'll give them credit. And it did factor into my rankings. I was like, man, they're trying stuff. It's interesting. And I like that more than just doing something generic, boring, and bad.
Yeah, I completely agree. I actually really like Life Is But a Dream. I don't know what they're going to do next, but we'll see if they return to form or if they keep trying to do unique stuff like that. I mean, we'll see.
I bet they stay weird.
I hope they do.
They certainly will.
If they go back to any level of weird, it's going to be like The Stage. It's not going to be like Nightmare. It's going to be like The Stage.
Yeah.
Amen.
Okay, cool. There it is.
Well, good work. All right. Well, it's time to really get into it, boys.
Oh boy.
All right. So we are going to dive into our EPs of the year. So all 3 of us have one, and we're just going to go through and talk about some music we loved at this point. We'll do EP, and then we'll dive into our albums. So Jeff, you led that discussion. Let Kyle take it away. Kyle, EP of the year, what you got?
Oh man, I couldn't get away from it. Pinkshift's Sriracha. I don't know if you gentlemen listen to this record, or excuse me, EP. It's beautiful for the 12 minutes that it runs. It's interconnected. Each song kind of ends with a more down instrumental, and that instrumental carries into the beginning of each of the next song, which makes it really feel like just obviously one ginormous song, which I enjoy. I love her voice, the lead singer's voice.
Yeah.
All of their stuff. I mean, Love Me Forever, record that came out last year. Every song on that, her voice is unbelievable. The notes that she's hitting, the cadences that she's going. And it's really fun pop punk in that record, but they kind of make an artistic shift with this record that starts off with Lullaby. That's a really moody, kind of almost disjointed verse into one of my favorite choruses of the year. Probably, honestly, my favorite choruses of the year in that opening track, Lullaby. That song actually might make my top 5 most listened to songs of the year. It's a real comfort for me. Extremely impressed with what they did there. And then into Home, not as dynamic, not as powerful, but still kind of carries that same melodic addiction that I felt in Lullaby with her voice, with the instrumentation. Everything is gelling together so well. And to me is a great ending track for this EP, and that it does feel too short, but it's perfect because I want more. And I always hate leaving albums and EPs not wanting more, and I want so much more from Pinkshift now after listening to this EP, because as mentioned, Love Me Forever is great, but I didn't really have an urge to want more. Suraksha is the opposite. I need more after listening to this EP.
I love this pick because I really love Pinkshift. They're one of the coolest up and coming bands right now. And if you haven't heard this, I could not recommend it enough. I think the track that stands out to me most on here is Home. The chorus is massive. And I think, this is kind of an interesting direction for them coming off of that album last year, Love Me Forever, because there's a lot of just like straight up punk rock on there, where they're doing a lot of really interesting things on here with her voice, the atmosphere they're kind of creating. I am also incredibly impressed by this EP. I love this choice. I love Pinkshift. Check them out if you've never listened to them before. Could not recommend them more. I'm so excited to see what they do in the future. All right. There's one EP out of the way. Jeff?
Sure, I'll go next. So my EP of the year is the debut EP from a band called HEAVENSGATE, and All I Loved Alone. Man, this EP is just brutal from beginning to end. Just absolutely crazy. Just soul crushing. And I'm a huge fan of like dark, ambient, sort of the stuff that they pull on this EP with the sound effects and just the dark lyrics. And it really just pulls you into an experience where it's like, it's an incredibly emotional EP in its destruction. I'll say that much. And its anger. And then they also throw in a little bit of an interlude, Lover's Dance, which I think matches perfectly with the tone of the EP. And so just from beginning to end, you have the slow intro from Comfort and the Slow Death, which just sets the tone for what's about to happen. Because it is a very, very dark EP. Creepy, ambient, the lyrics are just gross. Starting from Comfort and the Slow Death and then going to Symbiotic Suicide at the end, it's just balls to the wall, nonstop. So if you're looking for a crazy EP that crushes and also has like an ambient flavor to it, definitely check them out. They really hit it out of the park with this one.
Yeah, the EP is gross.
It's disgusting.
The 3 songs in the middle between like She Moves Like Thunder, Chemical Heaven, and Jinsic are just violating. It's very much in the same vein as like kind of that Alpha Wolf style of metalcore where it's just like,
exactly,
we're going to write breakdowns and they're going to destroy you and you're going to like it. It's so good.
Mm-hmm. Yep, and they got that ambient feel to it too. It's really cool. Yeah. It's really cool what they do with it.
It's really what's the word?
Sworn in-esque.
It is kind of sworn in-esque, isn't it? It's very like it feels like the end of the world is happening.
Yeah, exactly. It feels like you're gonna die.
It's
dystopian.
Like,
oh yeah,
it's very dystopian is the word I was looking for. Like with the atmosphere, Plus, I mean, like this is a debut EP.
Yeah,
and they've already put out another song since then.
Yeah, which
that
is
is
good.
also disgusting.
Yeah, which is really good.
It's cool when you hear a breakdown and you want to talk to your friends about it, like your friends that have never listened to metalcore. And I feel like it's over and over and over again on this EP.
Well, I think it's a good sign when you're listening and there's a breakdown that makes you laugh just out of nowhere. You're like, wow, that was crazy.
Dude, I love that. Something that gives you a little stank face or puts a smile on your face, like something that can give you a visceral reaction. I love it.
And one other thing is that, I keep going back to the ambient. I think it's because how they do it, like this EP really fills your ear. You really become immersed into it with the sound that they're trying to produce. It's almost like you can't escape it, kind of, which I guess is what they're trying to do. Like Comfort in the Slow Death, like you can't escape it. That's what it feels like to me.
Yeah.
I don't know. I love it. It's right up my alley in terms of my musical taste. I think it's great.
Yeah, this was a contender for me, but ultimately it did not win my EP of the year.
Well, what did win?
Great question. I'm glad you asked. My EP of the year is Origami Angels, The Brightest Days.
Thank you, New Jersey. Run myself the scene into the ground. I'm feeling up. You always bring me down. You bring me down to earth. You bring me down to earth. Carolina, where the face so nice upon your skin, but really being anywhere except New Jersey is a sin because the way you only got yourself, that's how you teach your way. Sure, this place based down in the South Atlantic Sea, but where you want to see
Whoa!
And then there is a discussion to be had here about, is this an EP? Is it an album? Because it's 8 tracks, but one of them is kind of like a short ukulele and interlude kind of track. So that brings it down to 7. And the runtime is super short, I feel like. Or maybe it just feels like that because it flies by. And I'll tell you this right now, if y'all don't approve of this choice, I'm going to swing the pendulum in the other direction and do the Upon Lost singles by Knocked Loose, which is only 2 songs. So what does the council decide? What am I going to talk about?
This is valid.
Yeah, of course we approve this.
This is valid?
Yeah.
This is valid? Okay, cool.
Extremely valid. I think we agreed on it when it came out, right?
Yeah.
I think so too. I think we did have that discussion because we were like, oh, well, what do they call it? Oh, a mixtape? Thanks for nothing. That's super unhelpful.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
But yeah, anyways, this EP is arguably the exact opposite of everything that Jeff just talked about. This is just super fun, unapologetically summertime. And it's just fun and easygoing, but it's not afraid to get its hands a little dirty and kind of dabble in heavy instrumentation. Even from the very first track, you get The Brightest Days. Opens with the ukulele instrumental, got some crashing waves in the background, absurdly catchy vocal melody. But then it all gives way to this like riff and the drums are coming in heavy, kind of eases off of that. But then it circles back to it at the end. And it's just a great opening track that really sets the tone on here. I think this album finds the perfect balance, this EP, I should say, finds the perfect balance between the fun and easygoing side and some of the aggressive tendencies that they have. Like, Thank You, New Jersey, pretty aggressive song. Like, there's blast beats in there, there's wild riffs. But it's also like this kind of interesting modernized version of like surf rock, which is kind of more mellow. And they have like the backing vocals, which you can find throughout this project. They also have Kobayashi Maru, which is energetic and fast paced. And it has a sick breakdown.
I dare you to listen to Thank You, New Jersey and not get it stuck in your head.
Facts.
Because I bet you can't do it. All of these songs are earworms.
They really and truly are. Especially the ones that kind of are in that more, traditional pop punk sound. Like Second Best Friend has one of the biggest and catchiest bridges / outros that I've heard all year. It just scratches a certain itch in my brain when he says, I always wanted more. And they bring in kind of the woes. Like it's so good. I don't know. I feel like I'm kind of going track by track here, but like my PG County Summer is so catchy. And it has this huge synth that comes in that kind of reminds me of Weezer, which is a really weird pull, but it's there. I love the lyrics in that one because he talks about like storming the Capitol, but also then immediately after that going to a Nationals game. That's so irreverent and so fun. Everything about this EP just works so well for me. I don't think there's a single miss on here. Yeah, man, this EP was addicting. It had its grip on me all year long.
Yeah, it's a great word for it. Addicting. It's so good. Off of one listen. If you have not listened to Origami Angel, honestly, anything that they've put out.
They are masters of that kind of easygoing summertime pop punk. Yeah, this EP is so fun. I could go on and on and on and on, but I will not. So that's our EPs. So now this is what all the people want to know.
The moment we've been waiting for.
What is this trio of goofballs top 5 albums of the year?
Oh boy.
Before we get into it, I do want to say we're going to try to streamline this conversation. So if, say, for example, if Sting by Emarosa was my number 5 album of the year, but, Jeff had it at his number 2, there's no way that I could know that. So when I'm giving my number 5 album, I would say my number 5 is Sting by Emarosa. Jeff would then butt in and say, hold that thought. We're going to come back to it. And then we'll table that discussion for when it comes up in his list. And I think this way it'll just streamline the conversation. We won't have any scenarios where we're like, all right, Jeff, what's your number 2? Oh, we already talked about it. Anyways, on to Kyle. So there may be a little jumping around at the beginning, but it'll all roll smoother than it would otherwise. With that out of the way, Kyle, I think you started the EP conversation. So why don't you just keep us rolling with your number 5 album of 2023?
Gentlemen, I'm ecstatic to do so. My number 5 favorite album in the year of our Lord 2023 is Little Garden by Dwellings.
Oh,
okay.
That's a good pick.
We're going to come back to this.
Lovely.
I'm going to butt in right now. This is a perfect example of what I'm talking about. We're going to table this discussion because it is higher in my list, and we're not going to spoil exactly where it is yet, but we'll get there. This will be talked about later.
Lovely. Jeff, please.
All right. My number 5 album of the year is Holy Design by Soulkeeper. Is that higher on your list too?
No, but that's such a crazy album.
Oh my gosh, dude. Okay. All right. So it's not on either of y'all's list. I can talk about it.
No,
sir.
Yeah.
Dig in.
All right, man.
That's awesome.
I was such a big Soulkeeper fan, back around 2018, and I didn't know when they would release new music. Because I love the 2 EPs they had before that, and I was just waiting around, twiddling my thumbs, like, man, when are these guys going to release something? And they released Gorgeous. I'm like, okay, probably my favorite song of 2019 if I had to pick one. Just favorite singles, just solo singles. I adored that song. And then I had to wait another year, 2020, Heavy Glow. Okay, great, another single, awesome. And it's like, well, when are they actually going to release an album? So, this whole time, like, the hype is kind of building inside. Finally, 3 years later, they release Holy Design, and I absolutely love it. It's so good. It's so fresh. It's so heavy. It's so different. Just the breakdowns are absolutely insane. From beginning to end, there is no stopping the breakdown train on this album. And the whole time they're throwing in these elements of like progressive kind of futuristic sounds and like the voice giving away to like robotic sounding computers. I don't know. The whole thing is just filled with futuristic sound effects, and it just keeps the album so interesting to listen to the entire time. I don't know. I just absolutely love this album. Not to mention that the videos that they have on Spotify when you listen to it are like really interesting, like 90s looking graphics of them, like dancing and stuff. It's like, what is happening? That adds to it too.
I'm noticing a trend here in your picks. You like metalcore that is absolutely filthy and disgusting, with a dystopian cyber sound to it.
Yep. If there are breakdowns that immerse me into kind of the world that they're building through the sound, I put it as a 10 out of 10. I love when bands do that. I love sound effects that come in and they're trying to like match, I guess, what the album cover looks like. And that's what they're trying to do here. And it just works so well for them. I don't think they've ever sounded better. I think they sound amazing, even given the hiatus that they had. It doesn't sound like they missed a single beat, a single second. Yeah, I don't know. I think it's amazing.
I do want to shout out the production on this album because it is absolutely absurd. It feels like every choice they made in the production of this album was so intentional, especially with all the kind of like glitchy effects that they add in there on top of these tracks. It's just so meticulously crafted. And I think you can say that about a lot of their music. It's intricate.
Yeah, not to mention that all the songs flow into each other. So it's like, you know, a complete sound from beginning to end for the most part. Gorgeous, I think at the end they just threw on because it was a single. But the rest of the songs, you know, they flow into each other. So it's like, I don't know, it just adds to the experience. It's just such a good musical story, I guess, from beginning to end. Not so much in the lyrics, but I mean more in like the musical choices and the production. I love it. My number 5.
Yeah, this is a great album. This is a great pull. I love this.
Thanks.
So Kyle, you tried to open up the discussion with a band that has 65,000 monthly listeners. Jeff, you opened it up with a band that has less than 10,000.
Yep.
We're going to keep it on the down low trend right now. This band has 28,000 monthly listeners. Somewhere in between, y'all. My number 5 album of 2023 is Graphic Nature's A Mind Waiting to Die.
Oh, dude, that's such a good pick, actually. I love that album.
I'm remembering it now after listening to it early this year. What a pull,
that is so good.
Good on you. Good on you.
It's such a crazy album.
Yeah, Jeff, this album is like everything that you love in metalcore.
Yeah, it literally is.
This album is just vicious. The breakdowns are huge. The production is massive. It's just so frantic. Like, this is one of the most underrated releases of the year, I think. And the best, like, if I did kind of describe the imagery of this album, like, you know, the early 2000s Saw movies where some of those sequences, you know, you got the trap, everything's kind of spinning around real fast. You got the really quick cuts. They're speeding up, slowing down, and everything's kind of gross and grimy. This is the audio version of that.
That's so true.
Frantic and merciless, quite honestly. I would also say this is in a similar vein to HEAVENSGATE, where it's kind of, you know, if you want a comparable band that's more popular, it's Alpha Wolf, but it has a little bit more of that 90s new metal grime in it. And it's nuts. I absolutely love the electronic elements that they throw in on this album that really kind of add to this oppressive atmosphere. Like, there's a lot of kind of ambient noises in the background, but then they also bring it to the forefront sometimes in like in Sour, where you know, you got this breakdown at the end that's just unreal. But you also get the ominous air raid sirens in the build up to that breakdown. And then they hit you with this crazy wobbly bass that just is kind of like carrying over the breakdown. It's not in the background. It's like right in the forefront. And it is one of the craziest moments of the year, I think. They kind of do that again in Headstone. On top of the electronic elements they throw in there, they also have a lot of really cool things that they do with like guitars and pedals in that one, especially in the intro, where they're kind of looping this like, I don't even know how to describe it. It sounds like a laser gun kind of like taking sight, like it's getting its sight set on someone. This album is just, it's nasty. Like, the breakdowns on here, I already mentioned Sour, but like Into the Dark has one of the nastiest drops on the record, even down to like the last 10 seconds. Two of my favorite songs on here, The Killing Floor and White Noise, just filled to the brim with disgusting breakdowns and drops. And like, they'll do a breakdown, and then when you think it's over, oh psych, we're doing another breakdown. one of the most fun albums I've heard all year. If you haven't heard this, I think it's one of the most underrated albums of the year pretty easily. I've been following this band for a while. If you like this album and want more, check out all of the singles they've ever released before this because they are very good. They did level up their sound a little bit here, polished it, got the production value up a little bit, but they've always just had that grimy, Slipknot-esque, new metal, nasty sound, and I love it. And that wraps up my thoughts on it.
Yeah, dude, that album is crazy. I need to go back and listen to it, but it definitely cracked my like top 15, top 10 for sure.
Yeah,
I'm kicking myself for not revisiting it.
Me too.
For this,
Me
for this
too.
list, man. That's such a good pick.
Yeah.
all right, Kyle, give us your next pick.
What you got?
My next pick, my number 4 record that just came out
Ooh.
only a month ago. I got Wolf and Bear's Blood Letter.
Just let your heart decide, baby. Begin to make me think twice. Worry for your soul lately. Taking out your knife. Let your heart decide. Don't make me tell you twice. Fire never burned you, never hurt you before. Wait for a moment to get hurt. How many days can we play pretend? Whenever you say I can't make amends, please make it end. I will start making to be written.
I also have it at number 4.
Wolf and Bear is a band that we've kind of been keeping up with since the beginning. I'd say since 2017, Nathan, we saw them live when they opened for DGD.
Yeah, we did.
Everything they've kind of done, we've been pumped on. Most of their singles, their live shows, I've seen them live twice, are electric. A lot, at least for my fandom, rode on this record. Do these guys have staying power? Are these guys for real? Are they going to be in the scene for a while? And they solidified that question just with Indigo. Kicking it off, Indigo crushed me, and it doesn't really go down from there. The feel of the record is awesome. The guitar work is unbelievable. To almost feel like it's a tandem vocal performance where there's one vocalist and then there's just some nuts guitar riffs going on between lyrics, under lyrics, and the highlights: Indigo, Fool's Gold, Chad B. Kang. Painted Lady is a dark horse song of the year for me. And it ends really well with Dream Snatcher. I was extremely impressed with the instrumentation, with the production, and the growth from this band. A real small band that we've been keeping up with, knocking me out of the park. I love this record. Was really impressed.
Yeah, I had a similar situation with this band, Wolf and Bear, as I had with Soulkeeper. I loved their Everything Is Going to Gray album, and I loved their EP in 2019. And so I was like, all right, sick, you know, I've been waiting for a while. And then they released Street Rat and Monstro, which I loved. I think those are great singles. And then I was like, okay, are we building to something? Nope, had to wait. But it was worth the wait, in my opinion. Because I remember talking to you guys, like when There's No Dust in the City or in Quick Sick, I was like, these are 2 10 out of 10 so far. Like, what is going on with these singles?
Yeah.
These are amazing. They're catchy. They're energetic. They're fun. The screaming has never sounded better. Like, this sounds like they've really perfected it here. And then K Resort came out, and I was like, is this going to be like an album of the year contender? Like, actually, is it? The whole thing came out, didn't stop the hype. They wrote it out, and this album just really, it wasn't disappointing in any way. I mean, this album is so good. Every song is catchy. It's fun. The guitar work is so intricate. It just makes listening to it such a joy. Kind of what Kyle was talking about with, like, it almost sounds like there's like a dual vocal, like the way that he's able to ride his voice over the guitar and the instruments on a lot of these choruses and stuff. And verses is just amazing. I can't get enough of this album. I'm probably going to go back and listen to it once we're done here just because I think it's so good. Like, I don't think there's a single song on here that I don't want to download right now. Like, every single one is so catchy.
Yeah, this is a great album. Like, this is right up my alley in terms of like progressive post-hardcore. And like Kyle said, I mean, we've been following these guys for a long time. So this really did feel like kind of a long wait because I think we got in around the time that they had just released their debut album.
I mean, it was literally like within a couple months when we saw them live. So like we've been waiting for 6 years at this point.
Yeah.
For another full length.
And it's phenomenal. I mean, everything they've put out has been really, really good.
Yeah.
And this album's no different. I mean, from the first song, like you said, Indigo, fantastic. K Resort, phenomenal. Like, the guitar work in those songs is so good. The way the vocalists kind of bounce off of each other Like their pairing is so good. Fool's Gold, another really fun track. And then I think my sleeper track on this album is Poofy. Like that song is just
Yeah, Poofy's really good.
so smooth.
It is awesome.
Good. No Dust in the City, great single. Quick Sip 84, phenomenal single. Yeah, this album is so good. It fell just outside of my 5. Great choice.
Yeah, good pull.
Thank you, Nathan. Nathan, what's
Yeah,
your
so
number
that
4?
loops it back around to me. So this might come as a surprise. My number 4 album of 2023, Super Bloom by Silent Planet.
It's a great pick.
We're gonna talk about it later. We got to talk
We're gonna
about
talk about that later.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I like that energy. Yeah, we'll get to it later then.
Number 4 though.
Sweet.
Wow, I thought for sure would be your number 1.
And that's kind of why I said it might come as a surprise to y'all.
Okay.
It's a great album. I think there are 3 that just kind of beat it out this year.
Fair enough.
Kyle, what you got?
All right, Kyle, what's your number
Back
3?
back to me, gentlemen. And I've mentioned it before, and I'll mention it again. My number 3 record is "It Wasn't Supposed to Be Like This" by Pulses.
Banger.
Great voice.
I mentioned it in the Blink episode talking to Matt, and I wasn't sugarcoating when I say I listened to it today. I listened to it today at work, and starting Different Strokes to honestly, all of those songs, in my opinion, are perfect. The first 5 songs on the track are unbelievable. And then you get Them Phones In, which has the horns in them. And I know Matt mentioned that they use Fiverr for those horns, but it sounds so cool and it builds so large for the rest of the song and for that back half of the record that I couldn't help myself with what Pulses is doing and the funky, the punchy, the intricate guitar riffs, which if you couldn't tell by my rankings this year, I'm into the riffs right now. I'm really into the riffs. It's such a blast of a record, and there's a reason why they're starting to get recognized a little more. And it'll only go up from here because genuinely, this record is almost flawless in my eyes. And it's a record that I tried to show my mother last time I saw her run the Ghouls. She didn't love it because she's not a huge fan of screaming, but that's how enthusiastic I am about It Wasn't Supposed to Be Like This. I don't know what to do with myself with these different musical styles, the instrumentation, the cadence of the screams, the features. It's lovely. It's a party of influences in different music that I can't get enough of.
I mentioned this when we were talking with Matt about the album. By the way, if you want to go listen to that, check out our Blink 182 episode. We talked with Matt from Pulses about the album at the start of that episode. Just all the influences on here and how they are able to take those and still somehow make a cohesive album. It's incredible. And not to mention, like, some of my favorite Pulses songs are on here. Run the Ghouls is just a 10 out of 10 grand slam song.
Yep.
It's so good. And then to follow that up with a song like Loafers with the White Socks. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? We're cruising real high. Yeah, this album is so good. Them Phones, Kupo, Heaven or Helvetica, they knocked it out of the park. They're going places. Pulses is on the come up, and they well deserve to be. They are awesome.
That album is really fun. It's really, really good. It's so interesting because there are so many different sounding songs on there that, like, it's one of those albums where you could listen to a song and not really vibe with it, and then listen to the next one and just absolutely fall in love with it. You know, it's like,
That's true.
You can't just listen to the first song and tell whether or not you're going to like it. Like, if you listen to the first song on the Soulkeeper album, that's like the rest of the album. You're either going to like it or you're not.
You get it.
You get it. Yeah. It's like, if you like this, you're going to love it. If you don't, you don't. But on the Pulses album, you can't do that because the next song could be so completely different.
Yeah. It's so good. I love this pick. Pulses is awesome.
Yep.
Shout out to them.
Shout out.
All right. My number 3 is Nathan's number 4. What?
Okay.
Yeah. Super Bloom by Silent Planet.
Here we go.
This album didn't really click with me at first when I first listened to it. I remember reaching out to you guys. I was like, isn't the back half kind of weak? And you were like, no. I was like, all right. And then I went back and listened to it and I was like, you know what? It's really not that weak. It's actually pretty strong. Although maybe not as heavy like Super Bloom. And that's like the one song I got hung up on was like Super Bloom. It's like, where is this big crescendo ending I'm expecting? But when I
It's there, bro.
it is, but it's like not what I was expecting because it's not super like there's no screaming on it.
Yeah.
So that's what I was kind of expecting. Like, where's the crazy breakdown? Where's the screaming? But I get it now. It's not supposed to be there. It's this beautiful ambient kind of outro that bookends, you know, the album because the first song, Lights Off the Lost Coast, is just an ambient instrumental. It's more about the ambience and the Soulkeeper album, kind of this world that they're trying to put you in. I understood, okay, maybe not focus so much on the crazy screaming and the breakdowns, which there are plenty of on here, more focus on the world and the ambience and the lyrics. And that's when I really fell in love with this album. And I really, for the first time, understood you, Nathan, when you were talking about how good this album really is. And that's when it clicked. And so with that being said, though, Signal and Anunnaki are still like two of my favorite songs of the year. I mean, those are just insane songs. I remember saying, you guys, it's like these songs are perfect in their execution. And I truly mean that. I think that those two songs are amazing.
Jeff, I agree with a lot of what you said. I've been following Silent Planet for a long time. Been a big fan of Silent Planet for a long time. I love Silent Planet. And I think they are at their best when they're crafting that very distinct atmosphere that only Silent Planet really has. Like Super Bloom, just a beautiful ending to this album. And like the bridge on in that song, just so transcendent. I mean, not to mention just one of the catchiest choruses on the album. But when that bridge and the final kind of climax come in, it's just like I'm elevating planes of existence. Like it is so good, and just the way it consumes me is just, it's beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
And I also love kind of what they're doing with their sound on this album. Like it is still very distinctly Silent Planet, you know, with the atmosphere that they have, but they're also kind of adding in some new elements. Like I don't think they've ever done quite so much 80s synth like in a track like Antimatter, which contender for Song of the Year.
I was about to say that
Yeah.
song, like that breakdown makes me feel things I don't know if I've ever felt in music. Just like the uneasiness mixed with the, I mean, goodness, I can't explain it. You gotta listen to it. It's unreal.
Yeah, Antimatter's crazy.
Just everything about the production on that track is so good. And I love those kind of new elements they're bringing in. And to throw it back to our discussion about Emarosa, which they were taking those elements and just making that their sound, Silent Planet is doing it right. And they're taking those elements and kind of finding ways to put it into their already existing sound and do something interesting with it. And I just think they knock it out of the park on this one. I mean, Jeff, you mentioned the heavy tracks. They're great. But also, Collider has such a phenomenal chorus. Garrett, this is his first go at the clean vocals, kind of leading the charge on this album. And I think I saw him saying something like he was kind of nervous about the vocals in the chorus of this song. But my goodness, it is awesome. And it's so catchy.
Yep.
It's huge. This album is really great. Other tracks that are really fun, Offworlder, just gross.
Yeah.
Heavy. Dreamwalker has some crazy riffs in it. And just like a classic Silent Planet chorus. Signal and Anunnaki, like you said, just relentless. This album is really good. Another great entry into a very strong discography.
Totally agree.
Is there an episode in their future?
Oh, there better be.
I mean,
There's gotta be.
That would be a very difficult ranking.
That's what makes it fun, though.
It might.
That's the discourse.
It
That
might
is what makes
happen.
it fun. That's the discourse, baby. That's what
That's
it's all
the discourse
about.
around the Discog.
We're discogging in our discourse. You know how we do. Okay. Well, do we have any more thoughts on Super Bloom by Silent Planet?
I got nothing.
It's amazing. Check it out.
Phenomenal work. Okay.
All right, Nathan. Now you're number 3.
Oh, yeah. Now it's me again. All right. My third favorite album this year, More Power, More Pain by Gideon.
Wow. What? Whoa.
Whoa.
Okay. Interesting.
What a pull.
I mean this in the least disrespectful way possible. I really did not anticipate this being in my top 5 because I wasn't huge on their last album. And so I was like, oh, it'll probably be more of that. But this album is massive. And I just could not stop listening to this. Every time we did an episode and I needed kind of like a palate cleanser, I threw this album on. Because this album just gets me moving in ways that other albums don't. I mean, the production is huge. And this thing is just filled to the brim with groove, chunky riffs, nasty breakdowns. This is like that Neanderthal metalcore that's just like caveman riffs. And it makes you want to like fight everyone around you.
Punch a wall type stuff.
They do that sound so well. It's so good. But they also like, if you're looking for a little more to your metalcore, if you're not just a metalcore meathead like me, the back half of this album has some really interesting tracks for them. If You Love Me, Let Me Go really stood out as having a kind of emotional chorus that really resonates with me. And it has like all these kind of pretty lead guitar riffs over it. It's super reminiscent of the Ghost Inside, but I've never heard Gideon do that. And I think they do it really well. And I mean, of course, it wouldn't be a Gideon track without a big breakdown. So they managed to find a way to put one in there. And it's great. It works so well. Midnight Blue was another really cool track. And it almost kind of sounds like they're bringing in some country elements. And I'm by no means an expert in that field, but this song almost sounds like, you know, what if we made a country song that has absolutely filthy riffs in it and just disgusting metalcore? I guess it's probably more fair to say that this is a killer metalcore track with like sprinkles of country in there, some of that flair. But I mean, it's so good. I don't want to take anything away from like that pure Gideon sound that's just like beating you down, beating you over the head, because there's plenty of that on here and they do it super well. Locked Out of Heaven to open this thing up, insane riffs. Push It Back, ferocious drops. There's a breakdown in the last minute where he just goes, push it, and it is just violating. If you just want to go to the craziest breakdown on this record, listen to the title track. The last minute of this song just drops you into one of the fattest, filthiest breakdowns. And then when you like, once you think it's over, you think you've made it out, they go into the second drop where it sounds like the tuning drops again. It's crazy. And like, I swear, if you can, like, if y'all listen to this and it doesn't give you stank face, like I will Venmo you $5 because it is nuts. Yeah, man, there's just so many fun songs on here. Too Much Is Never Enough is another great one that really gets me going. Damned If I Do is just punishing. They really kind of build an interesting atmosphere because they have all these kind of clips throughout the album of this interview from Hank Williams Jr. talking about his mental health and trying to separate himself from his father, what his father had basically raised him to be. And it goes to some really intense places and kind of the effects that they put on it during those moments. It's haunting. Like, it is haunting to listen to. This album knocked my socks off. It blew away every single expectation I had for it. I think it's a must listen to metalcore album of 2023.
I'll definitely have to check it out again. I think I listened through it once and now I really want to go check it out. I'll have to give it a second
Jeff,
shot.
I think you'd like it.
Same.
It's kind of in your wheelhouse. All right.
All right.
Kyle, you're number 2.
My number 3. Kyle, you're number 2.
My number 2, and this one is probably going to turn some heads. This is my only really hot take on here.
Oh.
But gosh dang it, gentlemen. If I haven't fallen in love with a record like I've fallen in love with Soft Hell by Closure in Moscow,
Keep waking every day, wishing you were by my side. There must be a better way. There must be a better way. Tear my body open wide, when I'm dancing with the dead. I just killed another night. My love's gotta show me a better way.
Oh.
Interesting.
listen, it's bizarre in a similar way that a band like Avenged Sevenfold kind of reinvented themselves. A band like Linkin Park in 2012 sort of reinvented themselves. Closure Moscow, I'm not going to say they reinvented themselves because it's their first record in like 7 years. But I will say every single song on this album, I'm going to listen to again over and over. I think the first 4 songs off this record are top notch, top tier, excellent songs that bring in these bizarre characters throughout, these bizarre sound effects throughout. And it's carried by Closure's lead singer, who the only other singer that I can really compare him to, and I do not say this lightly, is a Freddie Mercury type guy. A guy who can hit the notes, a guy who can bring the power on any song, even if the instrumentation isn't huge, even if the production isn't huge. This guy's voice carries it. And this guy's voice is something that I am drawn to every single time. And that's very rarely the case with my music taste. This guy is the Pied Piper for me. It's unbelievable. And toning it down into the more beautiful songs like Don Juan Triumphant and Soft Hell. Again, the song is revolved around like just a normal chorus. It really starts out with the same chorus at the beginning and the end, but they change the musical elements around it, and he'll go up an octave, he'll go down an octave, he'll control the power, the pacing, the cadence of the song just with the way that he's singing each chorus, even though they're the same melody. Guys, I don't know what happened after the first time I listened to this, but I really do love it. I highly, highly recommend it. Again, it's not extremely heavy. It's not extremely fast paced, but it is in the same way that Avenged Sevenfold sort of reinvented themselves with something that we've never heard before. I feel like Closure in Moscow did that with this record. They take these bizarre sound effects, these bizarre voices, and mold them into these songs to where it's a story, it's a character. And it's a blast to listen to, at least in my opinion.
Yeah, this is a surprise to be sure, but I love it. I love a surprise because I remember we talked about this album. We were kind of like, I don't really get it.
That's what I remember, so I didn't listen to it.
I know. Yeah, no, I listened to it again after that. And I was like, wait a minute, that opening track is actually kind of sweet. And then the third one, I'm like, wait, that's huge. Really, every time that I listened through it, I picked out another song that I was like, this is a great song. This is awesome. And it's a slow burn album. And I'm not going to act like everyone should like it. I know this is not up Nathan's alley in any way, shape, or form.
Hey,
full disclosure, similar to how Soulkeeper isn't, or excuse me, Heaven's Gate isn't really up my alley.
Yeah.
I just don't think this type of music is for everybody. But it hit me in a way that shocked me and surprised me after listening to it for the first time. And if you haven't listened, I highly recommend, if not just for the man's voice alone, the voice of a literal angel.
I like Closure in Moscow. This album has not clicked with me. I will say that, outside of Better Way, which is phenomenal. But I like Closure in Moscow. I'm not sure where this slander is coming from.
No. Yeah, it's more of just the direction they decided to take this album.
I guess I did just say this album didn't click with me, so I did confirm your suspicion. Basically, just affirmed what you said.
I knew this reaction would happen, but I couldn't.
I love it.
I couldn't sleep at night without putting this up here. So
wow,
interesting,
boys. We can keep it moving.
I love this energy. Jeff, number 2.
All right. My number 2 album of the year, and hopefully on your guys' list as well, Heavener by Invent Animate.
I'm not going to stop you.
Whoa.
I'm also not going to stop you.
Whoa. Are you serious? I thought for sure we'd all have this one on there.
That was tough, Jeff. That was a tough look, being like, all right, guys, please stop me.
Let's talk about this really good album. That was awesome.
It's okay. Wow. Okay. Whew. Gotta get it together here. All right. Recompose. Man, where do I start? So this to me feels like metalcore, but almost perfected in a lot of ways. I mean, just the sounds that they bring on here. The breakdowns are insane, and the production. I don't know. Maybe it's just because I really have fallen in love with like melodic, atmospheric metalcore. But I feel like Invent Animate kind of has conquered that territory in terms of what they're able to bring to the table with the sounds that they're bringing. I mean, Shade Astray, that single is probably one of my favorite songs of the entire year, just because it has
It's
the
so good.
like the catchiest chorus I've ever heard in a metalcore song.
I think that's a strong contender for their best song.
Oh yeah, that's the thing, that this album is filled with songs like that. False Meridian, Purity Weeps, Immolation of Night. I mean, these songs are just amazing. Labyrinth is awesome. They've really, really perfected it. Sure, it might be a little, I don't know, vanilla. I don't know how to put it. Like, they're not going too crazy in terms of their sound, like Invent Animate. They're not trying to, quote unquote, reinvent the wheel, but they have really come to. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
That was excellent. That was excellent.
Good
My gosh.
execution. Let's go.
Great form.
But they don't need to, because the production quality on here is insane. The choruses on all these songs are super catchy, and the breakdowns just hit like no one's business. And I don't know what more you want from an album with a metalcore band like Invent Animate. So that's all I gotta say.
It's not on my list, but this album is quite good. I think the reason it didn't quite crack my 5 is it didn't have a lot of staying power for me. While I do love a lot of the songs on here, especially, I mean, you mentioned it, but Shade Astray
Yeah,
and False Meridian, those two songs I do come back to pretty regularly. Most of the songs on here are downloaded. I think this is a great album. Just didn't quite crack my 5. I think you were absolutely correct. What they do it very well. They've mastered their craft, their specific brand of atmospheric, progressive metalcore with kind of the sparkly, beautiful leads.
Yep.
They nail it. They crush it. And I really like Invent Animate. And I think an Invent Animate episode will be extremely difficult. I think this speaks more to how much I love every album in my 5, more so than, this album not being of high quality, because it really is.
Agreed.
awesome.
Great.
Cool. Yeah.
All right.
All I
Well,
gotta say.
if you got nothing else to say about that, we're going to loop it back around.
Yeah, I'm curious
yeah.
what you got now.
Yeah. We're going to loop it back around to where this all started. My number 2 album and Kyle's number 5 album, Little Garden by Dwellings.
I'm left to my own devices. I'm in a crisis that I need not ignore. No, no. And I don't like this any more than you do. Any more than you do. Any more than you do. Yeah. I'm left to my own devices. I'm in a crisis that I need not ignore. No, no. And I don't like this any more than you do.
Oh, I forgot you had that on there. Nice,
Yeah,
nice.
see, this new format kind of interesting, it's like, oh yeah.
So you get to relive the excitement over and over.
Honestly. Yeah, Kyle, I'll let you take it away on here cuz you wanted to talk about this earlier.
Yeah. Well, I mean, first and foremost, I'm a big album art guy. Lavender Town, excellent album art. Little Garden, Dwellings. You guys are outdoing yourself with the art. Keep it up. Obviously, aside from that, this is about the music. You can't start an album with Devices and expect for the rest to be bad, because that song is unbelievable. Top song of the year for me. Just going throughout the rest of the record, they're sort of like what Jeff just mentioned about Invent Animate. They're not reinventing themselves, but they are continuing to remold, continuing to work on their craft, and create something that, similar to Pulse's, is so unique, so interesting, so cool. And the vocals are unbelievable. The melodies that they choose are addicting, with the horns, with the guitars, with the massive atmospheres in some of these songs. It's so punchy. It's so good. It's so fast paced, and it's so friendly. It's such an inviting, welcoming album that is a genuine experience that I will continue to enjoy time and time again.
You nailed it. I don't think there is a single dull moment on this album. These songs are so interesting and so engaging. These choruses are huge. all these tracks are like, yeah, it's all rooted in that same kind of progressive post-hardcore sound that we clearly enjoy a lot based on these lists. But all of these songs sound different. Like they all have different toppings, you know?
Yeah.
Like Gold Leaf doesn't sound like any other track on here. That's arguably one of my favorite songs of this year.
Yeah, I love that song.
So good.
It's so out there. It's so interesting and it's so fresh. And all of this album is fresh. So many interesting riffs, rhythms, vocal melodies. Their singer's doing runs all over the place.
It's so cool.
And he sounds awesome. I did want to give him a special shout out. His name is Isaac Wilson. Great voice. He just takes command of every single track on here. And as part of that, you know, he knows when to kind of step back and let the instrumentation do its thing before coming back in. There's just not a single miss on here. This album is infectious, red, massive. It's all there. Crazy riffs and rhythms. Also, the bass line during the part where he's talking about highway robbery, brother, come on. Waypoints, massive chorus. And then that section at the 2-minute mark where the song just kind of amps up and gets really energetic. This album is so good. I was absolutely blown away. This is another one of those albums where, you know, I anticipated that I would like it, but I didn't anticipate that it would like just pull me in and make me keep coming back to it. And that's what happened all year long with this one. This album is so good. And if you haven't heard it and you like progressive post-hardcore, you got to listen to this band. They're on the come up and they're going places.
Yeah, dude, this album has some of my favorite songs of the year on it. And Devices, Happens All the Time, Gold Leaf, Waypoints. It's just so fun.
Phenomenal album. Okay, now this is it, boys. The final stretch.
Here we go.
Are we going to have the same experience last year where we all came together at number one for the clean sweep across the top?
I know Nathan and I have the same number one.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
Oh,
100% no. No, what, 0% chance. Zero.
All right,
Zero.
Jeff, then I'm going to let you take this because I know Nathan and I have the same first one.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, I like this.
Okay.
Wait, before we get into it, are there any honorable mentions, like albums that haven't been mentioned that you want? Hey, that was pretty good.
Oh, the new Thy Art album, huge honorable mention. That almost cracked my top 5.
Good honorable mention. I like that. I have 2. One of them entirely unrelated to everything we talk about on this show. JPEG Mafia and Danny Brown. That album. I mean, it'd be pretty dang high on my list if I included it. And then there's another smaller, I should say. They put out an album around the same time as Graphic Nature. Soma by the band Half Me is really good. They're doing a lot of really cool and interesting things. They fell just outside my 5 though.
Yeah, I haven't heard that one.
It's good. I'd recommend it.
Also, the new Victims.
I got one. God Smiles Upon the Callous Cowboys. Shout out Callous Cowboys.
I like that honorable mention. They deserve it because some of their best work on there. Pushing the Pink Envelope might be the best Cowboy song.
It's so good. But yeah, shout out the friend of the pod, Callous Cowboys, Carson Pace.
Facts, absolutely. They deserve it. All right, enough dilly-dallying.
All right.
Sorry, I kind of sprung that question in. I was curious.
No,
you know?
I wanted to shout out that Thy Art album. It's really good.
Yeah. All right, Jeff, number 1, what you got?
All right, my number 1, no surprise, my most listened to artist of the year by a ton. It's the new Sleep Token. Take Me Back to Eden. All right, and this is where you guys fill in yours with that one too.
Nope, not happening. They didn't crack my list.
I didn't think so. I
don't hate that pick though.
This album just sucked me in and didn't let me go. I don't know. Every time I listened to it, it just kept getting better and better. The way that they genre bend throughout it is so interesting with the hip hop elements and the jazz elements they throw into these songs. It just adds to the experience. Vessels never sounded better. And I think one thing that makes this band so interesting is the persona that they keep with the masks and the anonymity. I think it's really interesting. And it adds to the kind of like worshiping, kind of religious tone that they're trying to get at. I think it works really, really well. I don't know. It's just, I feel like every single song on this album has a unique identity. They're all super different from each other. They all sound different. You have some super heavy moments, like in Take Me Back to Eden or in Vor or in The Summoning, where you get these crazy moments. And you also have moments where it's like, it's not so crazy. Like, do you wish that you love me? Which is a song I know you guys hate, but I've actually grown to really, really like it.
A guilty pleasure song for me. So you got the pass from me, Jeff.
Okay, Nathan.
No pass.
Okay. I didn't think so. I do like that song.
I'm not gonna get negative. It's not for me. The vocals don't click with me. But this is not a time to get into the critic side of Sleep Token.
This is the awards.
Is a celebration.
This is the awards.
Exactly. Shut up.
How dare you, Nathan? They're receiving a trophy while you squash them.
Yeah, this is gonna
Wrong
be
with
like
you.
my Kanye West Taylor Swift moment. I'm gonna stop you right there.
Yeah, I don't know. I just love the sound that they bring. I personally do like Vessel's voice. I think it does work with the kind of sound that they're going for. Take Me Back to Eden, for example. It's just so cinematic and beautiful and huge. And I don't think you'll find that kind of sound in many other bands. The song has like animal sounds in it, like lions roaring and stuff. Like, it's huge. And it crescendos up, and then it kind of lets you back down, and then it ends with a breakdown with a drum roll, which is just like, what is happening? It feels like you get punched in the face. And so that mishmash of genres, sort of what I'm talking about, but also the heavy elements that just keep you coming back. I just love it so, so much. And all the songs are insanely catchy. I just can't get them out of my head. And maybe I'm just a sucker for like the cinematic melodic sound that they have, but there's just something about what they're bringing that I just can't get enough of it. And it's actually made me a huge fan. I've went back and I've listened through all their stuff multiple times. And it's crazy that I have this as number one. I don't even know if it's their best album. I still think it's possible that their first album's even better, which I think says a lot about, their discography, just how consistently good they've been. But this is definitely like the best their most well-produced, huge, grandest sounding album that they've ever produced. And I'm excited for what they bring next, because I'm hoping that they're just going to keep elevating. Yeah, that's all I got to say. Great album.
This will probably get cut, but
It
would
will
you
not.
say it has a chokehold on you?
Yep.
I would say it has a chokehold on me for sure.
In that it's a vessel taking you to another place,
Taking me to Eden,
folks.
and that's the show.
And
we're done.
we're done.
We're done here.
All right,
Okay.
now you guys get to have fun with your two albums that you both have together.
So Kyle, if you think back to the start of this episode, there was another album that we tabled a discussion on.
Yes, that's how I know we have the same one.
Yes, sir. All right. So Kyle and I share number one. Kyle, would you like to do the honors?
Yeah, my number one favorite album of 2023 is Divine Intertention by Hail the Sun.
He's calling it fate. I think that it might be mine. Now I'm under the floor. Deja vu at the door. In the space that you call, you'll be finding us all right here under the floor. I don't see showing the marks of the chosen.
Yup.
Kyle, I didn't know you liked it so much.
Oh, dude, this is my my spoiler alert, second favorite Hail the Sun record.
Whoa. Hey, wow.
I feel like I'm a broken record talking about some of these albums, but there's not a low point on here. I mean, Tunnel Vision Alibi coming off into Mind Reader, into the top song of the year for me. Yes, I've said some of the top songs of the year in the past. The top song of the year for me, Chunker, and it doesn't really stop. Like, I mean, even to Under the Floor, the ending track, the outro track, it's amazing. It's massive. Dominic doesn't sound any better on any other album. He
Yeah.
sounds fantastic. He sounds locked in on the drums. The instrumentation sounds as polished as it's ever been. And you'll never find me complaining about Hail the Sun. And boys, we're not starting today. This album blew me away. Can't stop coming back to it. It's great.
This album is one of those like incredibly rare records that is really and truly flawless. Like there are albums people say, there's no skips, but usually there's like one or two, or there's one complaint or nitpick I could find. Every single choice they made on this record was the right one. This album is so good. I just think like this modern version of Hail the Sun has found the perfect balance between that progressive sound that they have and the accessible stuff. There are progressive riffs and fun, weird moments all throughout this album, but songs never overstay their welcome. They've trimmed all the fat and they've struck gold here. Like the progressive tendencies never come at the price of a concise song.
Yeah, that's got to be a proverb. That was a nice quote.
That's some divine intertension right there. There's the divine intertention between the progressive and the accessible, and they find the balance.
They sure do. And like you said, Nate, I like what you said about not every song, like all the songs don't overstay their welcome. But like even when they do sneak in an extra chorus,
yeah,
they make sure to change, either have it be in a different key, change something with a guitar riff. Dominic will go up instead of down on a certain note, which keeps things fresh. And that's what it seems like they're really, really, really good at, are keeping their songs fresh even at the end of the songs.
I mean, this is just Hail the Sun firing on all cylinders. The riffs are crazy. The drumming is nuts. I think the songwriting is better than it's ever been. There's some hooks on here that I hear and I'm like, that is probably the most catchy Hail the Sun song. Like the one that really comes to mind, I Saw You Hanging.
Dude, I know,
that
dude.
Song,
That song is amazing.
that song rocks.
That song is really catchy. Under the Floor, too, I found myself really liking.
Oh, yeah.
Really getting stuck in my ear.
Just another entry into the long list of great Hail the Sun closing tracks.
Oh, yeah.
How heavy this closing track is and how hard that hits following tracks like Feeble Word and Little Song. Those songs are both incredible. They're more mellow, but they're still incredible. Like, that's not to take away from them. But then this one just coming in with those really distorted, dissonant riffs at the beginning, and then the blast beats and everything. I mean, it's a perfect song. Such a great closing to this album.
Hail the Sun has not disappointed in years. I mean, since I started listening to them, their last three drops I've thoroughly enjoyed. And man, they're setting a hard standard for themselves because it's everything they put out. I'm eating up and I'm pumped on. I couldn't be more excited for what they're gonna do next.
They can't keep getting away with this.
They can't.
But they will, and they
do.
But they will, man. There's some fun twists, like stuff I've never heard them do before. I guess I Saw You Hanging. Like, I've never heard them do just like a straight up rock chorus that good before. The story writes itself. That bridge is so unique. Like, it blew my mind with that haunting chanting under Donovan's screams that kind of culminate with like this blast beats, and they hit this high note and it goes back into the chorus. I'm like, I don't know what I just listened to, but I know I loved it. Everything they do on here works. It's phenomenal. And there's a handful of songs on here that are top 10 contenders in their already extremely strong discography. Chunker,
God, dude.
I Saw You Hanging, 60-minute session blocks. All of those songs are so good. This isn't just number one AOTY.
Whoa.
I think this is number one Hail the Sun album.
Wow.
Like, and I've been a Wake truther for a long time. I love
You
Wake.
have been.
It's a great album. I think this album is genuinely perfect, and I don't think that Wake is. They've trimmed all the fat. They're firing on all cylinders. This is quintessential Hail the Sun. I love this band. I love this album. I genuinely, I listen to it so much. It's so good, man.
It really is. I couldn't agree with you more, Nathan.
There's no song on here that I skip when I listen through it, so I think that's a really good sign. Yeah, I mean, my favorite song on the album right now is Under the Floor, but I think it's a good sign in an album where my favorite song changes, and it's changed quite a bit because I really love the singles too.
Yeah, man. It's so good. Their sound is so finely tuned. They've carved out this very specific version of that progressive post-hardcore sound, and they do it perfectly. Yeah, I'm truly blown away by this one. And I feel like I could go on and on. But unless anyone has any final concluding thoughts, we will wrap it up for the year right there.
Been a good year for music.
It's a great year.
It has. We all have very different lists.
Yeah, a couple of overlaps, but that's about it. I think we had way more
couple.
overlaps last year.
Well, yeah, we had a number one across the board last year. I don't think there's a single album that showed up in all three of our lists.
Nope.
Kyle and I had 2 albums split.
Jeff and I had 1.
Before we tap out of here, let's go through our lists.
I can go first. All right. My number 5 album of the year is Holy Design by Soulkeeper. At number 4, I have Bloodletter by Wolf and Bear. Number 3, Super Bloom by Silent Planet. Number 2, Heavener by Invent Animate. And my number 1 album of the year, Take Me Back to Eden by Sleep Token.
Excellent. I'll run through my list now. At my number 5 album of the year 2023, we've got A Mind Waiting to Die by Graphic Nature. Number 4 is Super Bloom by Silent Planet. 3 is Gideon's More Power, More Pain. 2 is Little Garden by Dwellings. And number 1, my favorite album of the year, is Divine Inner Tension by Hail the Sun.
My number 5 album of the year is Little Garden by Dwellings. My number 4 is Bloodletter by Wolf and Bear. My number 3 is It Wasn't Supposed to Be Like This by Pulses. My number 2, Soft Hell by Closure in Moscow. And my number 1 favorite album is Divine Inner Tension by Hail the Sun.
Beautiful. So that's going to do it for this year. Been a good year for music. Been a fun year on the pod. And we'll be back next year with some fun bands, some fun guests. Yeah, thank y'all so much for listening. Thanks for a great year, guys. This wouldn't be any fun without y'all. We really do appreciate y'all and all your interactions with us. Yeah, we'll see you next year. Next new episode will be in February. We're going to take January off. But we'll see y'all then with a special guest. See y'all.